Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Friends, colleagues, and fellow EE practitioners. My name is Marzuki, and I'm from Group Digital PETRONAS. I'm honored to be given the opportunity to share my perspectives on how we can create a sustainable EE strategy as a foundation towards the organization's digital transformation journey. Initially, I had a bit of introduction of myself, but I think Hurin has actually done it much better than what I planned to, so I'll just keep that section. Like I said, I have to admit, this is new to me, presenting in a virtual setup. So I'm very used and comfortable having eye contacts and physical interactions with my audience. I see there's a bit more than 100 participants today in the call today. So I really hope that actually I can see and make eye contact with most of you. But like any digital transformation journey, we have to adopt or adapt with the new way of working, or we risk falling behind. So this is my day one presenting in a virtual conference. So fingers crossed. So let's try to make this as interactive as we can. I see from the previous session as well, there's a bit of Q&A that was submitted from the audience. So I will try to allocate some time towards the end for Q&A. So please feel free to submit your questions or share your perspective or feedback in the Q&A box below. I think digital is definitely the buzzword in many companies' strategy today. I think driven by external factors such as the COVID pandemic, or the market factors such as the collapse of oil price in the case of oil and gas industry like ours, or by other market factors such as globalization or nationalization by certain countries, which has impacted global trade and e-commerce, or even by internal push to increase sales, reduce costs, or increase customer happiness, as well as tons of solutions and applications powered by cloud, DevOps, Agile and Scrum, data as the new oil, and the list goes on. So I'm sure you have heard some of the quotes that I have actually shared here today. So I'm not going to read them verbatim one by one. Suffice to say, from global leaders to closer to home, many companies and organizations have embarked successfully on digital initiatives. However, I'm sure many of you are in the same boat as I am. We do get a lot of these questions and conversations at very senior management or board level. If I can summarize and group the questions, generally they evolve around three key themes. The first one is actually relating to pace. Why are projects implementation slow despite using DevOps and Agile? Why are we not agile enough to pivot quickly to respond to the market? Or why can't we accelerate innovation and ideation to MVP much faster? The second theme is normally around value creation. I mean, normally digital initiative promises a lot of things, right? The CFO normally says that I don't see this increase of profits or reduction in cost in my P&L. From the operations manager or head, it will say, I don't see the efficiency improvements that's actually earlier been promised or envisioned during the start of the digital initiatives. And the third theme is actually relating to cost. Why is the cost of the projects keep increasing? Why are we not failing fast or failing small? So the main question is, I think, is why do we still have all these narratives if the digital initiatives are successful? Many digital initiatives today are successful because they are point solutions to address specific business pain point, but they struggle to scale or integrate to the overall organization's digital landscape. In my simple illustration here, while application A, B, and C might be successful in solving pain point for A1, B1, and C1 respectively, They have also created other complexities from overall business value chain, such as duplication in applications within the same space or capability, which has an impact to cost, user adoption, data duplication, infrastructure, and support and maintenance. All in the context of data flow or integration issues, which has an impact to data quality, overall process efficiency, and the user experience. This has prohibited organizations from truly realizing the value and benefits envisioned during the initiation of the digital initiatives. This is why I think EA strategy and practices becomes more important in this digital age. With multiple digital initiatives running concurrently, creating more applications and consuming more data and infra resources, we need a systematic and consistent way to link business strategy with the digital initiatives. As fellow EA practitioners, I'm sure you are familiar with the benefits of having EA, so I don't need to actually dwell too much in this space. In general, we can group them into 3 areas. The first one is actually changing the way of working or transforming the way of working. How can we do more with less? Can we reduce downtimes and failures? Or how can we increase regulatory compliance? Second is actually in the area of efficiency. How can we do things faster? How do we generate more products and services or increase reliability in operations? And the third one, and the most popular one, definitely is relating to cost competitiveness. Either how do we increase the top line or market share, or reducing the overall OPEX and improving the overall profitability. The sustainable EA strategy will look and correlate the 4 layers of EA, namely the business architecture, data architecture, application architecture, and technology architecture. I'm sure there are many EA reference models out there, either by TOGAF, Gartner, Zachman, and others. But one thing I think is consistent in all EA models, EA will always anchor to the business strategy. Whether it's increase in revenue or sales by X% by 2025, or increase in market share or growth by Y% in 5 years, or increase in automation within business operations by Z%, or having sustainable targets aligned with ESG goals by 2030, business strategy will always be the North Star for the EA strategy to evaluate digital initiatives. EA strategy needs to be supported by strong EA foundation with clear architecture principles such as all digital projects must align to the business strategy, or we don't do them at all. Simple. Or principles such as 1 in, 1 out, as famously implemented in Amazon, with reference architecture and EA tool to increase pace in assessing and implementing digital initiatives. This is further supported by the respective architecture domains, where we not only inventorize the artifacts, the business capability and processes, but we also correlate, or what we call stitch, the data that needs to be consumed and generated, utilized by which application and running on which infrastructure. Here we are able to have insights to the business process improvements, data management optimization, application rationalization, and the technology refresh for the respective architecture domains. Last but not least, EA strategy needs to have strong architecture governance to ensure that the EA strategy and principles are being implemented and sustained throughout the organization, especially via the architecture board and the process and guidelines. I do agree that architecture strategy can be very abstract and hard to visualize. So I have two simple examples today that I would like to illustrate the value of EA strategy in the digital age. In this first example, we have a scenario here where we are able to identify duplication in application, and this is actually visualized through the EA tool that we have. As you can see, the first row under the current architecture, this business capability called well barrier analysis has currently two applications. One is called iWait and one is called well barrier, and they are actually serving the same business capability and actually doing the same thing, right? And this is where we are able to identify and see, hey, why do we have duplicates, right? And we can have more insightful and meaningful conversation with the business to say, can we look at actually retiring one of them, right? And in this scenario, we are looking at actually retiring this application called iWait. But we also have the insights that actually if we do this, iWait also today supports not only the well barrier analysis capability, but 4 other business capabilities. And if we plug this out from the landscape, what are the business processes or business capabilities that will be impacted in the absence of this application? This, I think, will lead us to have more meaningful conversations with the business and make more informed decisions, especially in terms of application retirement. And in this scenario, we are planning to retire this application called iWait in 2 years' time, right? And this is actually done or validated when we actually engage with the SME from the business. Then I think we can also have conversations on actually how do we bring it forward, what will be the business impact if we do so, and more importantly, what sort of business value we're able to generate in doing so, right? And in this example, we're able to save 190,000 ringgit. That's directly impacting our bottom line from a savings perspective. This example can also be applicable towards application rationalization. So imagine in a scenario where we have one business capability, but we have 5, 7 applications, right? And we can actually have more meaningful insights and conversation with the business on retiring them, on what are the costs actually to actually maintain all of them. And we can also see that actually this might be a subsequent or a consequence of us rolling a lot of digital initiatives or applications without retiring any of the earlier predecessors, right? And these are also insights that we can have towards application rationalization and consolidation. On a more deeper note, I think it's also the insights can provoke us to have more meaningful conversations with the business towards planning for new digital applications or the user adoption in this respective area. The second example I have here is relating to one business capability called drill planning. And in this example, we already have 2 existing applications that's actually supporting this business capability. But unlike the first example, although we have 2 applications already within this business capability, we are relying a lot in terms of manual effort and SME work in preparation of NOOP, what we call Notice of Operation. And maybe for you that's not familiar in oil and gas, this activity in relations to drilling activities in upstream is something that's very costly from a business perspective. Hence, why we are planning or proposing to introduce in the target architecture another solution or application that is able to automate the preparation of NOOP, right? Where we are looking at the efficiency improvement in the circa of 20%, right? So imagine if the cost of preparing NOOP for 10 to 20 wells a year will be in millions, and 20%, I think you can directly translate and correlate that to the efficiency to the bottom line as well. I hope both examples has provide us with some insights. I hope both examples have provided us with some insights in terms of actually how EA strategy can provide value, especially in this fast-moving digital age, in managing our complex digital and IT landscape. In summary, I believe there are 4 key success factors in implementing a sustainable EA strategy. The first one relates to EA advocacy. Having support from the most senior management is very important in ensuring that the EA strategy is actually implementable and sustainable. Not only that, I think EA strategy should be part of actually the core business strategy as well. And this will be further amplified via periodic reporting, progress reporting to senior management. This, I think, will deliver benefits and value in the context of the alignment, ensuring that we are always aligned to the business strategy and our North Star, as well as actually able to address pace, especially for innovation and ideation, as highlighted earlier. The second one, I think, is relating to the implementation strategy. I think it's very important to translate EA strategy to a clear implementation roadmap, having clear roles and responsibility or RASI between all related parties. In some instances, I also recommend that actually you choose an EA partner that can actually help you, especially to accelerate the pace of the implementation of the EA strategy. And last but not least, we are able to prioritize which business segment with the most business impact, the most impact when we really implement EA. The third area is actually in terms of success factor is actually in the procedures and guidelines. I do believe that actually while having procedures and guidelines are important, I think what's more important that is for us to have a very pragmatic approach towards implementing or writing procedures and guidelines to ensure that EA is easily implementable and also sustainable within the organization. I think it's also very important to deploy a fit-for-purpose EA tool with simple processes to ensure sustainability. I think as demonstrated earlier, I think it's very hard when we have multiple business capabilities and application and hundreds of applications and trying to explain or provide insights to our business and senior management without being able to visualize them in a tool such as a EA tool that I've demonstrated earlier. And last but not least, and more importantly, I think within the procedures and guidelines space is we need to over-communicate to ensure that we have high adoption of the EA standards and strategy in all the digital initiatives and projects. So this will provide both the implementation strategy and the guidelines will provide benefits such as ensuring the value creation and cost management is being managed, as well as actually it will definitely help in improving and accelerating the pace and having the impact of the digital initiatives to the bottom line. And the fourth success factor is actually evolving around talent. I think it's very important during the initiation of the EA strategy and implementation for us to assemble the team, implementation team that's actually representative and across the organization, having squads or pods that's actually multidiscipline. And more importantly as well, why I do recommend to engage an EA partner, organizations should also accelerate the internal EA talent building across the different architecture domain to build internal skills to ensure that these are actually sustainable. And last but not least, we should strengthen the EA community within the organization to ensure that the replication of the best practices and lessons learned are actually pervasive throughout all the digital projects and not within specific digital projects only. I hope my short but concise presentation today have provide you some insights on how EA strategy can actually really relate and support in this digital age. And I'm more than happy to take any questions at this point of time.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Marzuki. Actually, we do have a couple of questions for you. Let me read it out. Okay, one question from Muhammad Saiful Nizam. What would be your advice on advocating authority of EA in a large enterprise such as PETRONAS, especially in managing shadow IT?
Wow, this is a very tough and heavy question, but something that I think I can relate very well. You are right, in an organization that's very large, like PETRONAS, with various business areas and 50,000 employees. That's why I think the first thing from the EA advocacy, I think it's really important to have the mandate top down. So in the case of PETRONAS, for example, we went all the way up to our executive leadership team, ELT, as well as PETRONAS board when we first set up EA last year. And we have the mandate and support from our SVP as well as our president in implementing. And I think this is where I think a combination of the top-down approach as well as having very pragmatic policies and procedures really helps to ensure that EE implementation is smooth, successful, and also sustainable.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Okay, so second question is from Pranav Nath. She asked, EA is quite vast and impacted user base is also large. So for EA practice to be successful, the procedures and standards must be visible to all. So what is your strategy for creating awareness of the EA procedures?
Right. So I think that's a very good question. So let me try to answer that question from two angles, right? So I think, as I mentioned earlier, while EE is very broad, I think we should always prioritize which segment of the business that I think we want to implement EE first. And these should be areas where we will have the highest business impact, aligning back to our business strategy just now, whether it's actually we are targeting in terms of to reduce costs or increasing automation or efficiency, going green, whatever the business strategy is. So I think that's number one and of high priority. The guidelines and the procedures is something that we set for the whole organization, right? So I think the whole idea of actually how do we make it pervasive within the organization is through the over communication. So the idea is actually we have it, we communicate, it's there, it's part of our culture and the way we do things. And it's also embedded at the necessary stage gates. For us, for example, we have the architecture board that is actually meeting twice a month, comprising of very senior leaders in digital and IT space. And they are the control gate in the sense that all new technologies that's coming into PETRONAS will need to go through this, right? And there's no exception, whether you are a shadow IT organization or a minority organization, you have to follow through. And the subsequent processes, whether it's the procurement or the execution, cannot start without the mandate or endorsement from this board. And I think is also another way to ensure that actually projects and initiatives will all dovetail towards the policies and procedures that we have actually set up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we have two more questions coming in.
Where do you see the questions, Nuri?
Yeah, on the Q&A pen, yeah. Just click in Q&A, you can see. Okay, so Another question from Arif Hermani. He asked, how do you advocate EA understanding or spur the excitement of EA practice in your organization?
I also think that this is a very challenging subject, because obviously if you say that we're gonna create the excitement by sending everyone to EA training, honestly, I think that training is very dry and academic. People will feel that they are suffering more rather than actually enjoying the 4 or 5 days training. So I think the assignment needs to be linked to the digital initiative itself, right? So while we are not passionate about implementing EA as a standalone practice, we are passionate about how EA can actually help to realize the journey of the business or the organization to achieve the business strategy. So people should rally and be very excited, because this initiative is going to be able to save X amount of money for the customer, or improving Y amount of money for the business, or we're going to save X amount of trees actually from being cutting down, for example, right? And the whole idea about having EA practice being implemented is actually going to make the lives of us as IT practitioners, not just EA practitioners, much easier moving forward, because I don't need to, at every point of actually the project, I need to do things like data collection, business case justification. As you can see just now, I think within the EA tool, we have already have those informations and insights being provided, and we just need to have conversations with the business to further analyze and understand, rather than doing the data analysis all the way from the start. I hope I have answered that question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 2 more questions. Fakih Zulfikar asks, can you share how is the organizational model of EA management at PETRONAS, and how to ensure EA is able to provide the tangible benefits?
Terima kasih, Pak Fakih. I think the organization, the EA model that PETRONAS has adopted is what we call a semi-centralized or segment EA model, where we do have a centralized enterprise architecture function within at group level that looks at especially things like the architecture foundation, as well as actually the architecture governance. But we also have the respective business area looking at the architecture domain space, the one that I've mentioned, the middle layer inside the model just now, covering business, data, application, and technology layer. And everyone is actually aligned towards the same standards, policies, and guidelines. So that's actually how I think we are being set up in PETRONAS. The second part of the question is actually how do we ensure that EA provides the tangible benefits. I think I've covered maybe this in the earlier questions, but I'll repeat that again. I think because we are aligning towards the business strategies and the earlier goals from the business, I think that this is where I think we can create a lot of value, in the sense that by adopting EA principles such as one in, one out, or any initiatives that we're going to do, we will only do it if it's actually supporting one out of the 3 business strategies that we have. So that itself, I think, acts as a funnel to actually decide on which projects that will go through. I think subsequent, once you have already implemented the EA strategy, you are able to see more insights. I think like the 2 examples that we provided just now, where we are having opportunities to either rationalize or eliminate duplication in applications for specific business capabilities, or we are able to automate manual processes that's today costing us a lot of actually either money or inefficiency.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a couple more questions from Azrin Zubair. How do you measure successfulness of EA? Can you share experience?
I think different organizations are at different levels of maturity and journey in their EA journey, right? So I think in my reflection of my experience and my journey, I think the successfulness of EA will be measured or can be measured if it's actually supporting the earlier business strategy that we have actually mentioned, right? So if we have a lot of projects, digital projects, we've won a lot of awards, but if it doesn't help to support the earlier business objectives or strategies that we have had earlier, then I don't think those initiatives has a lot of meaning to us, honestly. It might be a very expensive learning experience, but I don't think that's something that's been successful. So I think EA is a practice that we are able to capture all those learnings, and more importantly, we are able to iterate and ensure that actually every time we implement a new solutions or initiative, we are able to reap the most benefit out of it. We are retiring any earlier or older applications that's doing the same thing, and etc.
All right, thank you for the answer. Okay, we have time for one more question. So for the other questions, maybe Mr. Marzuki can type the answer at the back end.
Boleh,
Okay.
boleh.
Okay. Okay. So last question. I believe PETRONAS has many proposals that need to go through ARB. How do you manage that volume by having twice a week?
Okay. So I think that's a good question. That's why I was mentioning earlier that we should have a very pragmatic approach towards actually the EE policies and standards, right? So you're right in the sense that we do have quite a number of digital initiatives, which translates into requests for architecture review, but not all necessarily fulfills a criteria that it needs to go to the board. So some of the decision making is being empowered, or the board has empowered the EA function practitioners like myself and my colleagues to actually go through and actually approve or disapprove them. And only the high priority ones will go, or the ones that meets the criteria will actually go through the board. And honestly speaking, I think we've been running for close to 18 months. Alhamdulillah, I think we've been very efficient in this space. I have not heard any verbatim comments within the organization that the reason we are slow because we didn't get the sitting for the board, right? And I think having said that, we are not staying static. I think we are also still looking at ways how we can do better, not just from the turnaround time perspective, but actually being more efficient and concise in terms of actually our process, especially when I talk about the reference architecture and the tool just now.